Hello and welcome to this Python tutorial, and mostly welcome to part 7, Natural Language Processing. So what is natural language processing all about? Well, it's about analyzing texts. These texts can be books, reviews, some HTML web pages that you extract from web scraping, all sorts of texts, and therefore natural language processing is a branch of machine learning where we do some predictive analysis on text mostly. So in this part, these texts are going to be reviews, written reviews of restaurants. And so we will make some machine learning models that will predict if the review is positive or negative. So this is a simple example of an application of natural language processing, but the algorithm we'll make in this part will be very well applicable to other kinds of texts. You'll be able to apply this on books, for example, to predict the genre of a book, whether a book is a thriller, a comedy, or a romance. You'll be also able to use it on HTML web pages to do whatever kind of analysis you want to do on these pages. You can also apply it on newspapers, to predict in which category an article belongs to. Well, you'll see that we'll make a general model that you'll be able to apply on most of the text. And of course, if you need to apply this on a more complicated text, you can ask me some questions in the Q&A, and I'll tell you what to add to make this code work properly for your problem, your text. Okay? So let's start this. Let's start our algorithm. And before starting with the first code section, let's do the basic step, the required step, which is to set the right folder as working directory. So right now I'm going to File Explorer, Machine Learning AZ folder. Now we are in part 7. So congratulations, you're making some great progress with the course. So part 7, natural language processing. And now we need to go to this section 36, natural language processing. And that's where our algorithms and datasets are. So that's the right folder. Let's click on this little button here to set the folder as working directory. And now let's start importing the dataset. So before we import the dataset, I would like to show you something. It's about these two files here. As you can notice, we have a restaurant reviews.csv file and a restaurant reviews.tsv file. So let's go into my folder on my computer and let's see the difference. And I'm showing you these differences to see which one we would have to choose so that you can yourself prepare a text file the best way, when you apply natural language processing for your problems. So right now I'm going to my folder. Here it is. And let's open the two restaurant reviews CSV. So open with text edit. Here we go. And restaurant reviews.tsv. So same, open with text edit. So that's the CSV and that's the TSV. Let's first have a look at the CSV. As you can see, the first line here is the title of the future columns we're going to have in Spyder. The first column is review and the second column is liked. And I can see that because these two terms here are separated by a comma, and this is a CSV file, meaning that all the columns are separated by a comma. So that's the first line containing the titles of the columns. And then we have all our observations. So one line corresponds to one observation. And as you can see in each of these lines, we first have the review. So this is, of course, a review of a restaurant. So, wow, love this place, meaning, of course, that the review is positive. And therefore, in the second column, the liked column, we have a 1 here, meaning that the review is indeed positive. So the variable for this liked column can take two values, 1 or 0, and 1 means that it's a positive review, and 0 means that it's a negative review. So indeed, as you can see, in the second review, crust is not good. Well, of course, that's a negative review, and therefore there is a 0 here. All right, so that's actually the kind of file we're used to, because since the beginning of this course, we've only been using some CSV file where the columns are separated by a comma. But here we have something different. we can see that we have the same columns. First column is review, second column is liked, and we have the same reviews. So these are exactly the same data sets with the same data, but there is one major difference. And as you might have guessed, this difference is the delimiter. In this file here, the delimiter is a comma, so that's the delimiter separating the two columns. And in this file, the delimiter is a tab, and that's why we call it TSV. Tab separated values vs CSV, comma separated values. And so now, according to you, which one should we choose for our future algorithm? You know, we'll have a machine learning algorithm analyzing all the reviews here, and then the goal of this algorithm will be to predict whether the review is positive or negative. All right, but now the question is, do we need a data set where the columns are separated by a comma or by a tab? Well, the answer is, as you might have guessed, by a tab. And why is that? It's because we already have some commas in the reviews itself. Well, for example, this one. This review is the food, comma, amazing. So if we use our CSV file where the delimiter is a comma, well, we'll have a problem for this review here because for this particular observation, the first column will contain the food here. So Python will think it's a review, the food, and the second column will not be one here, but amazing, because there is this comma here that is taken for the delimiter, and therefore it will separate the food and amazing. And therefore what will happen to one? It will go to the next observation, and therefore one will be taken for a new review. So that will not make any sense, and this will mess up with the whole algorithm. And that's why it's way better to take tabs here, because you know, when people write reviews, they do not put tabs in the review. Well, that would be very rare. They would put comma very easily, as we can see for this particular review, and we can find other reviews with commas, I'm sure of it. Yes, indeed, we have another one here. This place is not worth your time, comma, let alone Vegas. So it's very natural to put some commas in the reviews, but not much natural to put some tabs in the reviews. And besides, if you press on tab when you're writing a review, well, this will go to the next, you know, button to like submit your review or something else. But by pressing the tab button when you're writing your review, you would get out of the review and you would not be able to continue to write it. So we will never find a tab in the review, and that's why we will never have this problem of getting these anomalies due to duplicate delimiters in one specific review. So I really recommend to prepare your text datasets this way with a tab separator, because you will never have that kind of problem. One other solution, if you really want to use a CSV, would be to include some double quotes here, one at the left of the review and one at the right, but you would still get some problems in case you have some double quotes in the reviews itself. I'm sure we can find one. Let's have a look. Let's press Command F to find a double quote. Here we are. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. For example, let's have a look at this review here. The description said yum yum sauce. Well, that's because this person here is quoting a description found somewhere. And so since it's quoting, it's using some double quotes here, yum yum sauce, and another one here. So even if you put some double quotes to separate your reviews from the result, that is 1 or 0, well, you would still have this kind of problem. Whereas if you separate your review and the liked variable by a tab, you will never get this kind of problem because no one will press tab by writing a review. So definitely that's the one we'll go for, restaurant_reviews.tsv tab separated values. And by the way, this is a dataset taken from a paper from group to individual labels using deep features by Kotsias et al. So we will use this dataset, and this contains 1000 reviews, and for each of the review we have the real result 0 or 1. So let's do it. Let's start implementing our algorithm, and we will start with the first step, that is to import this dataset restaurant_reviews.tsv into Spyder thanks to pandas. So let's do it. Let's close this and let's go back to Spyder. Okay, so as usual, well, some things are going to change because we're importing a TSV file, but as usual, we're going to call our dataset equals, and now that's when we use the pandas library. So PD, because we have our shortcut, dot read underscore CSV. Here it is, parenthesis. Now we input the name of the dataset in quotes, which is restaurant underscore reviews dot TSV. So that's the name of the dataset we just picked, restaurant reviews dot TSV. And now we just need to add some parameters because of course we are importing a TSV file, whereas this read underscore CSV function by pandas is expecting a CSV file. So we just need to add some different parameters to specify that we're importing a TSV file. So this parameter is actually delimiter equals, and to specify that it's not the comma delimiter but the tab delimiter, we need to input in quotes here /t, and that's the tab delimiter for pandas. All right, so that's done. Now pandas will know that our two columns are separated by a tab, so that's great, but we will not stop here because when looking at the data sets, we saw that we might have some other problems related to the double quotes, and so we need to make sure that we won't have any problem with these double quotes. And to avoid these kind of problems, what's good to do, not compulsory, but just to make sure everything works properly, well, we need to ignore these double quotes. We never know. These double quotes might cause a problem, so it's good to ignore them. And the trick to ignore them is just to add another parameter here, which is the quoting parameter. And there are actually some codes for this quoting parameter, and the code to ignore the double quotes is the value 3. All right, so by including this quoting equals 3 here, we are ignoring the double quotes. All right, and that's ready. Now we're ready to import our restaurant reviews TSV file. So let's now see what the dataset looks like when we import it here in Spyder. So I'm going to select everything up to the top because the libraries are not imported yet. So we need to include that code section as well. And so now let's press Command or Control plus Enter to execute. And here it is, importing the dataset correctly. Now let's go to Variable Explorer, and everything looks great. We have our 1000 observations and our 2 columns. So let's have a look. As you can see, all the reviews are very well separated to their verdict, whether it's a positive or negative review. And so everything here looks great. And we need to make sure that we have our 1000 reviews. Well, we can see that here very easily, but we have our 1000 reviews, and when I scroll up, we can see that all the reviews are well in the review column, and all the liked results 0 or 1 are well in the liked column here. You see, if I scroll up, we don't have any review in the like column or a 1 or 0 in the review column. So everything looks great. We are ready to move on to the next step, which will be to clean the different reviews. That is a compulsory step in natural language processing, which consists of cleaning the text to make it ready for our future machine learning algorithms. So that's what we'll do in the next tutorial, and until then,